Today's episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens, the all-in-one daily drink to promote better health and peak performance. We here at Swisspreneur know that even with a balanced diet, it's difficult to cover all your nutritional bases. That's where Athletic Greens will help. With its complex blend of 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food sourced ingredients, it is no common drink, but straight up nutritional insurance for your body delivered right to your doorstep. And let's be honest, you can't really take off as an entrepreneur if you don't have the right fuel. I myself use Athletic Greens first thing in the morning. One simple scoop in a glass of water means my energy levels stay consistently high throughout my day. Athletic Greens tastes delicious, and it manages to do so while containing no more than 1 gram of sugar and being compatible with any diet you can imagine. Vegan, paleo, keto, you name it. So if you're ready to become the entrepreneur of your dreams, head on over to athleticgreens.com/Swisspreneur to claim our special offer today and receive a free D3K2 wellness bundle with your first purchase. That's up to a 1-year supply of vitamin D. Very important for the coming winter months. And you know what's also a winter essential? Listening to Swisspreneur. Once again, that's athleticgreens.com/Swisspreneur. And now, on with the show.
If you know that you're working for yourself, you get that extra kick when you talk with customers and you're selling projects.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and hands-on learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Tanja, very well, welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks, Sylvan. It's really nice to be here today.
You're the CEO of the Debiopharm Innovation Fund. That's a strategic fund of the Debiopharm Group, and you focus on digital health investments. We want to know all about that and also what kind of investments that you make. But before we talk about that, we want to know more about your personal background. You are the daughter of a Finnish surgeon and a Swiss businesswoman. And throughout your life, you also ended up working in both countries, actually. So I wonder how much of a role did your parents play in determining your professional career?
It's funny, now that you say it, it's true. My mother was in actually international banking business and my father was a surgeon. So it is something between those professions where I ended up. But yeah, my father told stories about patients in our dinner table every day. He talked about the surgeries that he did. When I was little, I knew all about internal organs, all their names, because I had heard them so much I was 6 or 7. I knew pretty much about human anatomy. So that definitely started an interest towards healthcare, patients, and how we can cure diseases.
Got it. And then you studied microbiology and biochemistry at the Aalto University in Finland. Did you ever consider a strictly technical and science-related career yourself? Like your dad, for example?
Yes, I think that did cross my mind several times, but I have to say that maybe by personality, I'm too curious for all kinds of phenomenons and innovations and things in life. And I want to, kind of from the engineering background, I want to turn innovations into practical things, and then how does that work, and how do people then actually buy those technologies? So and on the other side, I didn't have a lot of patience for microbes because they grow very slowly, and the biochemical testing in the laboratory can be quite. It takes a lot of time and patience. So yeah.
Got it. So can you elaborate a bit more how that also showed in your teenage years, or just as a kid basically? Where did that entrepreneurial spirit that you were then later infected come from?
Wow, that's a difficult question. I think that I've always been a bit of a wild child. I fought with boys when I was little, and I was really creative. I wanted to do my own thing. I imagined things and I created things, and then I wanted everyone to follow me. And if they didn't, I got into fights with them. But I was still I always walked my own path, I guess.
So you knew what you wanted and you made sure that you got it.
Yeah, maybe.
During your studies, you also then in 2018, I think, traveled to North America. So I also wonder what impact did that trip to North America have on your career and your entrepreneurial spirit?
Yeah, 1998, I started, I worked in Canada, and then after that in the US, in Los Angeles, and after that in San Diego. That had a huge effect on me. I think that the North American culture is very entrepreneurial, and especially when you're in California, everyone is a businessman. They all have their own business, although they would be working day jobs somewhere else. And when I was doing my internship there on doing market research on biotech industry and critical success factors in that business, I started kind of listening to people, and I said, I want to do that too. I want to be an entrepreneur. And I didn't know what type of entrepreneur, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur. That was thanks to North America.
So the spirit and the motivation really got injected in you there.
That's right. That's right.
Now looking back, you said you have always been that way, that entrepreneurial way. Do you think that entrepreneurs, are they born, or can you also develop your entrepreneurial mindset to a certain degree?
I'm sure you can develop it, but I think that there are people that just have more maybe curiosity and ability to take risk, and that want to, create something and outlive that. I think there's a natural kind of characteristics that you need to have.
Got it. And then your US trips or North America trips actually brought that back to life. Yes. Because in 2000, you then started Biosolutions INT, your own company. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a bit more why the timing was right to start your company and what you exactly did with that company?
Yeah. So I had just come back from the US, and I had decided now I'm going to look for something to do as an entrepreneur. And my first idea, I wanted to replace animal testing in clinical trials by technologies that can maybe do it in silico, or we can do it in vitro in laboratories. And I was looking for the right technologies, and then I graduated at the same time, and the time kind of ran out and I needed a job. So I said, okay, well, what can I do? What can I do that is of value to somebody else? So I thought, okay, I know how to do market research, so why don't I just start from there? And I started my first company straight out of university, in research project management and market research. That was the first business idea.
And with that business, you also expanded to the US again. You opened an office in San Diego, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
So how has your experience, from already been there before, helped you to actually open an office there?
Oh, absolutely. Because I saw that there was a need, number one, for European companies to enter the US market to see what, there was a lot of investment back in the day in San Diego in biotech industry. It was the hot spot. So, people wanted to get access to there. They wanted to understand the opinions of some of the highest profile professors. So it was kind of an easy step to take there. And it was, quite frankly, it was so stimulating environment with just driving through La Jolla with biotech companies on both sides of the street. You would not see that anywhere else in the world. It was really exciting.
Got it. But then still, already 2 years after you launched your own company, you actually sold it already?
Yes.
Why sell it so quickly?
Yeah. So although we had offices in Helsinki and San Diego, we were only like 3 people. So it was a small operation. And I worked with several startup companies doing market research, kind of positioning them on the market, helping them build their business plan to explain to the investors why their ideas are good. And after I would do a market research project, the young startup entrepreneurs would ask me to help them on the next step. And I said, okay, well, I've never done it myself. I don't have the experience. I can't give you too much more. I don't want to be on the next steps because I'm not that experienced in what you do after. And I walked to Innomedica, that was at the time a VC-owned kind of a consulting company working in biotech, in licensing. And I asked them to help, can we work together? And while we started thinking about how to work together, they kind of came around after a while and said, why don't we just acquire your whole business and you start our market research and project management business. So that's how it ended.
Crazy. 2 years after the start.
Yes, yes.
But what then made you sell was the new role and the new collaboration basically that opened up. Was that appealing to you, or why did you then actually sell the company?
Yeah, there was a lot of experienced people in Innomedica, and I really wanted to. I wanted to learn from them. I wanted to do the next step and develop to the next stage together with these people. They were a really good group of people in Helsinki and in Tokyo, and it was exciting. It was an opportunity to still have and run my kind of own side of the business, but work as a part of a larger group.
Got it. So maybe you can walk us through, they wanted that you work for them. So how do they structure such a deal? Do they just acquire the whole company, or do they just hire you and say, you close your own company? How did that go about?
They acquired the whole company. They acquired the whole business because I had customers. I had lots of agreements already in place. I had a multiple year agreement with some of the biggest customers. So they wanted those agreements. So that the easiest way is to just buy the business and hire me at the same time. That was the way to go. And then we could transfer all those agreements also to the new company.
Nice. So it was a double win, basically. They won you as employee and also your client.
Absolutely.
Can you disclose any amount or anything, in terms of the details of the sale?
It was not that big.
Okay.
It was good at that point. I got out of my student debts and I bought a car. And I got because I had also taken some debt to start up my company. So that was great, and I got kind of 2 years after graduation, I had a really good job and I was debt free. So that was it.
It's already a pretty good start, I would say.
Yeah. It wasn't millions, let's put it that way.
So you weren't able to retire after that deal?
No, definitely not.
Then you also stayed at Innomedica for 14 years. Mm-hmm. Did it ever occur to you to start another company and leave Innomedica?
Absolutely. So first I worked with them for a couple of years, I think 4 years. And around that time, I was 30-something and I decided to start a family. So I was home more or less 3 years, working then part-time when I returned. And when I got back after the kids, I was actually working with a group of researchers to start up a new company. They asked me to join them as a CEO. And I was about to leave. I was already reviewing the contract. And at the same time, Innomedica's chairman called me and said that the CEO is leaving and would you like to take over the job? So I thought that was exciting because I had thought that there was a lot of things that we could do better and we could grow and we could do differently. So I got that chance. And I stayed, but I also made this promise to myself and I told them as well as a condition, I want to do a management buyout because there was a large VC that still owned the company. And I said, no, consulting companies, service company, they never work unless it's owned by the management. It's much better that way. And
maybe just why is that the case?
Well, when you think about it, we are selling, when you're in service business, VCs can't really help us because we're not a scalable growth business. So we were, there was some historical reasons why we ended up in that situation. And at the same time, we are really selling our deep knowledge and our personality. Mm-hmm. And if you know that you're working for yourself, you have that you get that extra kick when you talk with customers and you're selling projects. So you're just that much sharper when doing that.
A real entrepreneur at heart, I would say.
Yes, absolutely. So I did, that's what we did, and we acquired the company back to ourselves, and then I became an entrepreneur again. So I had sold my company to a company that I later became a major partner of. So
crazy, and then you bought it back.
Yes, yes.
How did you finance that? Did you get any investors on board to make that deal happen?
I did loans. So there was an organization in Finland backed by the government that gave good loans for women entrepreneurs. So that was really a good way to do it.
Great. But still, like 14 years in total at the same company,
Yeah.
that does something to you. So how have you changed as a person during these 14 years?
I would say it's an interesting thing because when I think back, I'm like, oh, how did that happen? 14 years is a long time, but because you work in projects with other companies, I worked with more than 80 companies. I counted when I left 83 companies that I had worked with on different projects. So you're all the time renewing yourself, going into a new company, finding out what is their real question behind the need, helping them get over it. You learn something, you take that to the next project that you work on. So it was fast paced. So I would say that during those years, what I learned was really to organize my schedule and manage my time, because you can really work night and day on those projects. But also what really changed is that I learned that every company has their own problems or challenges. And when you go into a company, usually they explain that, oh, we'd like to help with so-and-so project. And in the end, I started smiling. I'm like, okay, you tell me whatever you tell me, but I'll see what your real problem is. Because once you get to know the people, it might be that they need an external because the management team has an issue. The C-level people don't agree. They need an external to help them communicate to each other or challenge their questions. Or there is something in the company, there's a structure, there's a change that has spun the company to a strange curve. And they need to bring it back. Or then many companies are just insecure. They think they have a good idea, but is it really? Are we really going to take this risk and invest money into this business growth when nobody knows? So I almost started thinking in the end that it's almost like a psychologist talking to the C-level team to find out what their real problem is and to help them analyze with facts, but also to help them kind of from mentoring perspective to have the confidence. So I think that changed during the years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's also very interesting, as you just described, there's no like magic bullet or one size fits all solution to the companies. Every company is different. I think that's a very important takeaway there.
Yes.
But then at a certain time, also, logically after 14 years, some tasks and duties that you have get a bit more repetitive and maybe also a bit more boring.
Yes.
So one day you started screening LinkedIn a bit, just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah. I have to tell you I have to take a step back from here and say that we had wanted to create a more transaction business in the end of in the final years at Innomedica, and we did a M&A on the buy side, and I had always thought that that's kind of like a big deal. And after I did that, I thought, okay, well, what's next? And I felt that it was repetition of, you go to a customer, you sell your project, you do the project, you move on to the next project. So there was kind of a continuum missing. And I thought that, investing in companies, I've worked all my life with innovative startups and innovative technologies and how to get those to the market. But how do you then, I wanted to continue with that, but maybe with a longer time perspective. So I thought, okay, investments would be an interesting area, but I did not have any experience on investments and how to manage that. So yes, I was sitting at my office having my morning coffee and looking at updating my LinkedIn, sharing some posts, and I click on the tab for jobs and I started saying, because I had thought about should I start looking outside and not stay within Innomedica, and I landed on a job ad. It was not really relevant, but I just looked at it and what is this about? What are the requirements and so on. And as it happens, the next day I receive a message from a recruiter on, would you be interested to speak with me about a job in investments? And I said, that's Big Brother watching. I go on one job ad and the next day a recruiter calls. And that's how it started. It was really, we had a conversation and I grew really interested in what we can do with Debiopharm.
And then eventually in 2016, you joined Debiopharm.
That's right. That was a classical story of coming from Zurich on a train through the vineyards, seeing the Lac Léman, And I've heard this story about throwing your return ticket out the window. It wasn't that quick, but I did come to the office and I looked at the lake and I said, wow, if you can work in this beautiful place, I'm sure that you will be happy.
So that's like the USP of Lausanne and Debio Farm here, right? If you come from Zurich, you're already halfway sold if you come here by train.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Of course, it's gorgeous also in Zurich. I have to say that, being Zurich Oberlander myself, but part half from there. So, but it was definitely something exotic and exciting. But also, of course, the whole Debio Farm story. And how the company is built, how it operates. So that was really exciting.
In what way?
So Debio Farm is a privately owned kind of pharmaceutical biotech company, mid-size, and the legacy of this company has always been to use the world as our laboratory and in-license products when they're approaching the clinical trials, develop them, and then work with partners to distribute those products globally. That's the kind of the Debio Farm pharmaceutical company perspective. And I thought that's kind of the same way that I see that there's a lot of innovation in this world and we just need to connect the dots and get people to talk to each other. And I really like that. And then with this strategic fund, the opportunity to go even further and look for what is going to change? What is going to change the patient care? How we're going to develop drugs in the future? There's so many broken models in our business. We have aging population and huge healthcare costs. So how can you solve those problems by innovation? That was what really excited me.
I can fully understand that. And you became the head of the innovation fund at Debio
Yes.
Farm, and soon after also its CEO.
Yes.
So what was particularly interesting for you to switch to the investment side?
Yeah, it was exactly this thought that I had, that I've seen a lot of companies. I know I can help them. I can bring my experience and my knowledge to these guys, but also to be able to see the journey and see a longer part of that journey. So when you go in as an investor, 2 to 4 years is what you're looking at for sure, even longer within the company. And you can help and affect on the paths that the company takes. And I wanted to also prove to myself that I've learned something. And I think that I've developed an eye for what works, what doesn't, what companies, what kind of CEOs make it. And I wanted to prove to myself that I can select the type of companies for investments that will actually have a good ending, that have an exit. And I'm on that path still. I want to see that happens.
I want to talk about those selection criteria in a moment. But before that, take a step back and also ask you, why does Debio Farm actually need its own innovation fund? Like, what's the rationale of investing money in other third-party companies, basically?
Yeah, it's bringing external innovation, kind of helping our people also to mold. We develop drugs that large pharma companies are going to distribute one day in the world. That market, when our drugs get to market, it's 6 to 8 years from today because of the long timelines of drug development. We need to know what type of drugs are needed in that future market. If we develop drugs always the same old way, we are going to develop drugs to a market that doesn't exist anymore. So we are trying to ensure that we stay on kind of the top of the wave of development, so that we bring current products to the market that really are targeted to the needs of that market. Right.
And why did you decide to build the innovation fund in-house and not outsource that to an external third party?
I think it's there's a good reason for that. We still want to have a strategic, very highly strategic investment. So the kind of the motivation has to come from inside on, what do we need to look for? And at the same time, I need to bring a really external perspective and kind of bring those internal needs and external innovation together. And if you have an kind of a VC fund where Debiopharm invests, there's much less possibility. There's much more LPs that affect the direction of that fund.
So you have less strategic influence that you are looking for?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. So let's focus a bit on the companies. What kind of companies do we invest in? We mentioned at the beginning, digital health is your core focus.
Yeah.
Can you talk a bit more about your focus area and what you're looking for there?
There's two focus areas. One is digital health companies that change the way patients are treated. So patient journey is much more than having a pill. We want to kind of go beyond the pill and help the patients in every way we can. And Debiopharm's focus is cancer, oncology, and infectious disease. So those are the areas. And in oncology, there's a lot to do. We give patients pills, and they hurt and they get very sick from those pills. They're curing the cancer, but at the same time, it makes them feel very bad. We send them home, but could there be something more that we can do to help the patients? So that's one area. The second area is how we develop drugs. Like I said earlier, healthcare is too expensive today. We can't afford this type of healthcare anymore. And of course, pharmaceuticals are part of that problem. So can we develop drugs? Today, the drugs are extremely expensive because it takes, 2.4 billion to get one drug to the market because we fail so many times in the development. So what can we do to make that development more efficient, faster, more targeted for the patient needs? And so I believe that using innovation and digital means, we can improve as a pharmaceutical industry to develop drugs in a much more agile way.
These are very ambitious but also important goals, I would say.
Before we continue with the show, we'd like to introduce you to Swisspreneurs' main partner, Klara Business, the digital all-in-one solution for small businesses. Whether it be marketing, sales, customer care, or accounting, Klara is just what the doctor ordered. Any SME employee can tell you that managing internal processes manually and on paper is just about the silliest way of wasting your time. That's why Klara digitizes everything. An easier, hassle-free workflow means you and your company get to spend time on what really matters, your core business. Go to klara.ch to find out how your business administration can be simpler, faster, and more efficient. And now, on with the show.
We also mentioned, you invest in startups. So how do you actually make the decision about whether to invest or not to invest? What are you looking for?
Exactly. It's the typical investor answer. It's the management team. Of course, it has to fit the focus, the focus area where the company is working. And then, we usually invest in Series A. So it has to be that stage company, and there's certain percentage. We're always looking for 10 to 20% of the shares. So those are the kind of starting points. But when a company fits that kind of framework, we start talking to the management. For me personally, the single most important thing is integrity. If the CEO is responsive, answers to the questions, comes across as authentic, honest, trustworthy, these are very important. Of course, technology is important as well, but with a mediocre technology and great management, we can succeed much better than a wonderful technology but not so good management. And that's really, during the due diligence, we talk with the C-level team many times to get to know them, to understand them. And then, of course, in the healthcare area, what is also important is that the products do what they claim to be doing. So we need some clinical validation as well.
Got it. These integrity parts, they seem to be pretty difficult to measure in hard facts. So probably you have sort of a gut feeling or
Yeah.
red flags that you see. Do
Yeah.
you have any examples for red flags that say, oh, this doesn't work for us?
Okay. So one thing is definitely, like I said, responsiveness. If we talk with them and we go back and forth with emails, if there's, it takes a week to answer. That's one of those
Sure.
typical things. But also it is a lot about getting the gut feeling. If the CEO can explain simply what they're doing, then we know that he or she understands what they're doing. And whenever it gets too complicated for us to understand what they're really doing, it's typically not our problem. It's there's something that's not aligned straight. If we ask about development paths, and if there's kind of a too complicated story, this also comes across like, have you really thought through? And overselling is one thing that is not easy to take. Using a lot of marketing and kind of overseeing our honest, true questions and trying to ask about something, and then oh, we're gonna be so great, and thinking that investors always want to just think about money. And the same is another thing is sometimes we are with young entrepreneurs that have great ideas, but as they tell us that this is the way that pharma company can sell more, and it's kind of like, of course we're business, but at the same time, pharma company doesn't just want to sell more drug to the patients. We want to actually cure patients and help them. So any sort of you need to be authentic and honest, and you have to have very good values.
Got it. There's one thing about the simplicity that you mentioned that comes to mind. I'm paraphrasing here, but there was like one person that wrote a very long letter and then at the end said, sorry, I didn't have time to write a shorter letter. And I love that quote because it shows you that you need to put in a lot of effort and energy to be able to explain things in a simple and easy to understand manner. I think that's a perfect example that fits with what you just described.
Exactly. That's great.
One thing that I also like to talk about are challenges. Setting up an innovation fund is not an easy project or endeavor to do. So first of all, raising the money. So where does your money come from? Is it fully financed by Debiopharm?
Yes. So we're an evergreen. We're basically investing out of balance. So that was kind of one tick in the box that made things easier with us.
But still, I probably can imagine that there is some convincing needed to actually get that money and, not give it to your private shareholders, but actually say, hey, we invest that in the next generation.
Yes. I think that, when I arrived, the investment fund was already existing. There had been several investments in diagnostics and in pharmaceutical field, but then the fund wanted to take a kind of a view to what's the next wave, where do we need to go in the future, what's the personalized medicine. It's not just companion diagnostics, but it's also digital health. So that was kind of it was there was the will from the top. But I think that what was needed, what were our challenges were two things. To get all the digital health companies to understand that we invest in digital health. We were known as a diagnostics investor. And so how do you create networks with other investors, with accelerators, with startups in this field? That was one thing. Also, the name Debiopharm doesn't help because everyone associated with pharmaceutical investments. So that was one thing. The other thing was also that, of course, you have to show your shareholder, your kind of the owner of the fund, that you can deliver. And we're supposed to. We are a learning fund, so we need to bring strategic value in learning for Debiopharm. We want everyone to see what these technologies can do and how they can develop us. But at the same time, we can't. I don't think anybody would be happy if we lost all the money. So we need to build that trust by making investments that make sense and making some exits early on. And that's fortunately what's happened. So we have increasing trust internally, I think.
Great. Another challenge that you face is more from the market side, where startups don't really, or not often, perceive corporate venture capital funds as smart money. So how do you deal with that issue?
Yeah, so that's interesting. Maybe they even think of that as a smart money, but they don't think that it's kind of smart from industry background and understanding the context, but from financial perspective. I think that has been a trend in the past. It's becoming more and more usual that corporate ventures are not just pouring corporate money into acquisition pipeline. So traditionally, a lot of corporate venture funds have invested in companies where they think that, okay, we'll watch them for a bit and then we'll acquire if they deliver what they say they're going to deliver. I think a lot of corporate VCs have kind of evolved from that and become more VC type investors with a capability to bring networks and knowledge that maybe traditional VCs don't have. Good traditional VCs are good, of course, because they are also looking at the value creation all the time from financial perspective. Corporate VCs also have the benefit that we don't have fund timelines. Whereas VCs, when you have a fund timeline of maybe 10 years, the first couple of years you invest and then you do follow-on investments. But if you go towards the end of the fund life, you're going to have to do exits with companies, and that's that. And regardless of where the company is. Yeah,
that can lead to misaligned incentives, I would say. If you want to have an exit, but the company, actually the founders, they want to keep pushing and growing.
That's right.
That can be a challenging situation.
That's right.
So in that regard, deal flow is also crucial, that you get access to the right deals and can also position yourself. What do you do in these regards? Where do you get your deal flow from?
Yeah. We had to do a lot of footwork in the beginning of the 2018 to 2016, 2017, when we pivoted to digital health. We had to go to every event there was to talk about what we do and to really meet with people and network. That was, we still do that a lot, but also entrepreneur communities, startup communities, accelerators. We try to be active and in dialogue with a lot of these. But then I think that in the end, it's a lot about your networks, who your co-investors, who you exchange information with. And when you develop good relationship with the CEOs of the companies that you've invested in, they will always introduce you forward. So that's the best way.
Makes sense. You recently also co-led a 10 million Series A in Uncomfort. Mm-hmm. I'm quickly going to quote here. It's a Belgian scale-up that is specialized in digital sedation that develops a new method for relieving patients' pain and anxiety through treatment with clinically proven sessions of therapeutic virtual reality.
Yes.
This sounds very complex from, my poor business background, so no medicine background at all. But maybe you can walk us through the timeline. How did you end up investing in that company? Yeah. How did it look like, the process, and the decision making, basically?
Sure. So Uncomfort is an incredible story. I met actually the CEO through another investment through Kaiku Health that we invested earlier on, and we already actually exited. We sold Kaiku Health last spring. But the CEO of Uncomfort, Mario, he was an angel investor in Kaiku, and we met over a dinner. And I thought he was a great person, had a lot of thoughts, excited about innovation. And then about a year and a half ago, in June, I was at an event in London, a digital therapeutics event, and all of a sudden I see Mario on the stage, and he starts talking about digital sedation, and I'm curious, what is he talking about? He shows a video where a person is under hypnosis, clinical hypnosis, delivered through virtual reality, in an operation where you're actually doing total knee replacement, which means that you basically have an axe and a hammer and you're hammering somebody's bone away, right? And I looked at that piece of video and I said, that's really incredible. And I went to talk to him about it. I said, when are you raising money? This is something that we have to be a part of. And he said, well, in the upcoming year. We started that dialogue, and I called him a couple of times. I said, when are you coming to Lausanne? Come and talk to us. You always talk about dating period when you're meeting a startup. So I guess that was kind of the time when we kept meeting each other in different events, and he visited us, and then they launched their investment round. So what really helped is, number one, I knew the CEO from before. I had a little bit of experience. I knew his former colleagues from the company he used to work for. So it was easy for me to talk to some people and get really good recommendations for the CEO. And that's, again, about the CEO. Everything is about the CEO. We took a little while because in the spring, of course, last spring, with the COVID situation, the due diligence process slowed down a little bit, and we had to take a little pause at the fund. We said, okay, now we stop for a couple of weeks. We make a total review of our portfolio companies, because if our current portfolio companies need help with the COVID situation, we need to take care of them. But then, we realized everything was good, and we went ahead with the Uncomfort investment. I think it took about 6 months from the moment they were ready to start raising to the moment that we were kind of ready. Term sheets were out. With COVID, we had dealt with that. And then a little bit further to make the shareholder agreement and investment agreement and agree with the co-investors. And that was it.
Great story. How did you do the clinical tests? What they were showing you on the video, that this actually works. How did you do the due diligence there?
That was funny. Of course, we read all the articles in the that they had from their clinical studies, but in the end, we took the chairman of our investment committee and the chairman of whole Debiopharm, Thierry Mauvernay, and the CEO of Debiopharm International, the pharmaceutical company, and myself, and we had a private clinical trial at the Swiss Pain Institute here in Lausanne. We went there, and we actually watched a couple of real patients being treated with the digital sedation, and it was incredible because the operations that we saw were very hard to watch because they're obviously very painful, but the patient was all right with the digital hypnosis. And then after that experience, we actually had a small test where we were hypnotized and we were induced some pain, or they induced some pain on us. It was wonderful experience. I did not feel any pain. I was completely out somewhere. And after the treatment, after I got out of the hypnosis, I must have been really happy and relaxed for about 2 days. So I immediately knew that this is going to be a bestseller, and so did our top management. We all were quite impressed with that product.
Sounds like a game changer.
Yes.
For sure. So now you made the investment. How do you then work and support your companies after you close the investment? Because that's actually where the real work begins, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We always, our investment philosophies, we're active investors. So we always take a board seat or ask for a board seat. So we continue working with them through board work, but also we organize kind of workshops and ask them, what kind of knowledge is there something that we could help you with? Do you have regulatory questions? Are you thinking about your market access? Is there something that our people could help in the pharma? Or if you want to work with pharma companies, is there questions that you have about what do the customers, what's the customer need? So we help them by creating connections to our people at Debiopharm. We organize workshops together. We kind of give them time from our experts, and then of course in the board, it's important and really interesting to help the company direct their strategy and be there on the journey with them.
Now, I think you gave us a great insight into how you work at the Innovation Fund. I also wonder, now looking back at your career, you worked in both Finland and Switzerland. You also have these roots, obviously.
Yeah.
So if you compared it to countries, basically, what comes to mind when you think about Finland, Switzerland, the differences and what they can learn from each other?
Yeah, I think that the biggest difference comes actually from the history of these countries. Finland is a relatively young country; it's 100 years old, and it's in the north. It's kind of exotic somewhere there where there's a lot of snow and reindeer, and so they are at a position naturally that they have to rely on technology. And they are very innovative because they don't have the long history. So they have to create something new to, sell to the international markets and so on. So they're technically oriented, very good in IT, lots of history in IT, in gaming industry, Nokia and so on. Very appreciative about young energy, creativeness, and so on. In Switzerland, on the other hand, we're 800, how old is Switzerland?
1291.
We're 800 years old company, more or less. So Switzerland is an 800-year-old company, and that puts we have lots of traditions here in Switzerland. We have lots of old good industry here. We have lots of capital in Switzerland. So obviously that has a completely different environment where maybe sometimes even a bit too, I wouldn't say conservative, but too thorough. So, it has to be technology and then everything has to be in place. And then we are planning things a lot. Whereas in Finland, the guys are already moving because they're very creative and fast moving. On the other hand, Swiss companies tend to think into a longer future the ambition is to build a company and maybe a bigger company. And I think that Finnish startup companies have maybe they want to spin the product to the market. They want to bring their technology to the world, but there's maybe not the same type of ambition to develop to become a medium-sized to large-sized company. And there's more understanding that this is a startup that we will sell 1 year and then I will start another company, and it's a very entrepreneurial culture.
Yeah, makes sense. Let's also look a bit into the future. Mm-hmm. So let's start at the macro level and then go deeper into the micro level. Where do you see the future or the upcoming trends of digital health?
I think some of the biggest things that we need to change is in the way we understand insurance and health insurance and how we today we pay for treating diseases, and in the future we need to think about predicting and keeping ourselves healthy. That shift is important. And the other one is the patient centricity. This is a traditional industry where doctor is at the center of attention and has all the information. But in today's world, the younger generations, they're completely digitalized, and everyone, my kids have never even known the going into a bank office, to do banking business. Everything is online. So they will not understand why they would not have their health information with them on their smartphones. They are digi-natives. They want to have knowledge about their conditions. They want to see alternatives. It's like the navigation, I'm here today. I want to get there. Maybe also in health. I have something today. I have a backache, or I have maybe some symptoms of something more serious. And I want to get back to health. How does the navigator, what are the potential routes? This might take longer, but it's an easier route. This might be the fastest route, but so really having the patient at the center, being a part of the decision making, that has to change.
So as a consumer, I love what you're describing. That sounds like a very, very good development from my personal customer perspective.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's even when we think about our vaccination records on paper. I mean, and do we even remember exactly what we got? Do we have those papers from our childhood? I think it's incredible that we don't have access to our own health data today.
Fully agree.
Yeah.
So what is next for the Debio Farm Innovation Fund then?
I think we continue on this path. I really want to crack the nut of, can we predict how drugs will perform in humans in silico? One of our investment, Nova Discovery, is working on this in silico drug development. So really, how far can we go with that? I would like to see that patient experience information becomes integrated into our development and in all pharma development in the future, so that if we use smartphones, watches, other wearables, that information is integrated into how we interpret how the patient is doing. So really, we are able to measure all of this, and we need to hear the patient voice. So I really want to do that. Yeah.
I think in that regard, then you're suddenly also competing in a certain way with the big tech companies, right? Like Apple is pushing that game heavily, massively, with Apple Health and stuff.
Yes.
So that's going to be a very interesting, but also probably quite competitive field.
Yes, it is. But at the same time, the big players are part of this ecosystem, and they're creating a platform where these startup companies can, because you can't cover all at the same time, all medicine. So startup companies typically take one narrow field, but if there's a kind of an ecosystem of technologies and a platform, you basically plug in these different applications into it. You plug in, certain type of cancer care, certain type of physiotherapy or whatever. And that ecosystem there's a lot of space for startups and the large ones. And I believe that we can only together build the future.
Got it. So now we talked about the industry, we talked about the Debio Farm Innovation Fund, but we also wonder what's next for Tanja.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that all my career I've worked with startup companies and CEOs, and I'm excited, the excitement of innovation, challenging the status quo. I don't think that's ever going anywhere. So I don't know. I think that the investment area is great because you can really help and be a part of this ecosystem, and working with CEOs in this area somewhere.
Got it.
Yeah.
So to wrap up this episode, we prepared 5 rapid fire questions for you. I either give you one question or a selection of 2 or 3 options to choose one of them, okay?
Okay.
Are you ready?
Sure.
So the first one, regret making an investment or regret not making it?
Regret not making it.
Why?
Afterwards, we saw that you can see that a company has after all done real well. But I think that what my answer indirectly says, that I've never regretted any investments that we've made.
Nice. Do you have any favorite investment that you missed and now wish you had invested back in the days?
That was in my previous job. There was a company that I helped start up, and I think that I should have personally invested in that company. What an exciting story.
Got it.
They became.
What's the biggest deal breaker in an investment from your perspective?
Any sort of sign of mistrust towards me, or any sort of a behavior that leads me to think that the person has not been fully honest.
Very good point. What one piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Don't worry so much. Things are going to work out.
Love that one. That's cool. And if you could only pick one career, would it be biology or business?
Biology.
Okay. That's where your heart is.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. And the last one, Switzerland or Finland?
Oh, that's not a fair question. Switzerland, I think. My roots are in Finland and my wings are in Switzerland.
Got it. Tanja, thank you so much for your time and for sharing the interesting journey. And it was a pleasure talking to you. And we wish you and also the Debio Farm Innovation Fund all the best and lots of success for the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sylvan. It was a pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.